Welcome to the third stop in our journey about data visualization. So, what is data visualization and why do we use it? Data visualization consists of converting data, which is usually in a table form, into a visual form. And the reason we do that is it is often used to explain complex relationships and trends in data. And it also enables us to understand data at a glance. You will have seen this often in newspapers. Newspapers use this a lot. So, for example, this is an example from the Times of India, where they will show you the where foreign exchange is stored. This is just one example. There are tools that there are many tools that actually explain how to generate these kinds of charts. And there are many kinds of charts or data visualizations as well. You should actually learn about many of these, and you will learn about them in your other classes at school or in college. But as you will notice, what data visualization consists of is converting numbers into some kind of lines, dots, and areas under lines, things like that. And so how do we draw these? While we could use a tool, we already have a turtle that we did in our first exercise that knows how to draw lines and dots. So let's see if we can tell the turtle how to convert data into a visual. What we are going to be building is something that looks like this. So what we will be doing is converting this data into this visual. Now, when we do this, what concepts will we learn by doing this? What we are going to learn are two very important concepts that are applicable to all programs or many programs that you will do in real life. The first one is how to transform the data into another form, or what is called data mapping. This is a very common operation. So we're going to have to learn how to convert data that looks like this into something that looks like this. And the second is when you do a data transform, you will realize that you have to do certain operations, or you have to write certain actions that are repeatable, and you have to write special functions to accomplish those actions. And what I'm going to show you is that oftentimes before you even write a single line of code, it is useful to take pencil and paper or some drawing like a board to map out the steps you will need to get from here to here. So let me show you how you do that first on a piece of pencil and paper and or a board, and then how you convert that into a code and a program that accomplishes the task. So let's get to a board and draw out all the steps we need to transform this into this. When you look at the visual, first you realize that you have a data that is repeated here. So it's basically a string of the student name and a number, which includes is marked. That's the input side. Now on the output, what do you need? You can see the components, what we need. We need some kind of title. We need a repeated way to draw a bar. Then we need to label the bar and repeat that for each of these data items that we have here. And then draw some kind of decoration over here. So those are the kind of steps that I talked about. Let's see how we would do that. So we have this data, and this is going to be the canvas area we have. And what we're going to do is we need something to write a text at any point we want, because these are so we need some kind of label function, which is add label. And when you do a label, this add label, we're going to put in various places. So the first place we're going to put this label actually is over here when we do a title here. So we're going to, so this is where we write the title. Then what do we need to do? What we need to do later is to draw the bars. What we need to do is first we need to find the position on the canvas where we draw the first line. And then, sort of we kind of repeat this for each of the items. So we find out this is where we put the first one. And then maybe the next one we need to put on an X position here. Then we need to put it here. Then we need to put it here. And then we need to put the items over here. So this is what we're doing over here is really a function which gets us, let's say, the get X position. That's what we need. Okay, so we need a function that gives us an X position. Then what we need to do once we position ourselves as a particular point, then what we do is we need to draw a bar, and a bar, that has this kind of shape. So what this is what we're doing over here is we're drawing a bar. So we need something that allows us to draw a bar of a particular length that is related to the score somehow. Then what we need to do is we need to use the same function here, the add label, to what we need to do is add the label over here. So this is another place where we need to add a label, except instead of one line, we are going to add the student name. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do the student name, and then we're going to write the student score. So, and then what we're going to do is we are going to repeat this thing multiple times for each item in the data set. So we will then be essentially doing the same steps, which is draw a bar and write a label, for each item in the data set. This is our data, each item in the table. And then finally, of course, what we are going to do is we are going to do some decoration, which is essentially we're going to be kind of drawing some circles in the background. So we're going to do some decoration, and we'll just call this a decoration function, or draw dots of a certain size. So this is what we're going to do. And now you know what we're going to do. Essentially, when you start writing a program, we need to mark out the areas in our program where we're going to do those things. And let's see, I'm going to show you how we start doing that. So let's go to our code. What I did over here is to save us some typing time. I used our first Python program and copied and pasted the initial part, where you import the turtle and basically set the turtle speed. These are the functions that we said we would do, which is get the position X to move it. The get the color is something we did from the first Python program. The other is we said that we need to move to a particular point before we do things. Then we need a function to draw the label, and then we need a function to draw the bar. So this is what we're doing. Okay, now the first thing we do really need to do is, let's see what our program is doing right now. It's actually doing nothing in here. And when you have a block that does nothing, you can write just something, an empty block, you just say pass. Basically, it means come in here, pass through, and do nothing. So let's see what our program is doing right now. Well, it does nothing. Well, actually, what it is doing is it's doing this part. It's kind of looping through the data, but it is just drawing. It's moving to the position 0, 0, and then it's drawing these three dots. So these three circles. One circle of a sign 250, of a radius 250. So it's doing this one. Then this is the radius 200, and then this is the radius 50, and then it's printing the item done. Okay, so let's see, remember the first thing we need to do our graphs is actually find an X position and then move it, sort of step by step for each of the data items, okay? So let's see if we can do that, and let's get before we get the items, let's first see if we can get our position, okay? Is we can say X pos and Y pos equal position and index, okay? Now you remember that in our lesson 2 or episode 2, what we did was we told you how what the for loops are, how to do a for loop with data. This is another form of the repeat statement. We could just do, sort of item and data, but what that will not do is it will give us the item, but it will not give us what is the index of the item. To get the index of the item, in Python, what you need to do is you just need to enumerate the data, and you get the index as well as the data all in one nice step. So let's see if we get the X position and Y position, or let's call it the base position, okay? So we get the base X and the base Y, and we called our get the position X. Now what is the position X function? What it is doing is, remember this is 0.00, so what it is doing is it's telling, okay, first move the X to minus 120, and then for each N, move it right 60, so it's moving it right 60 for each of the N's. The Y position is minus 100 because we don't want it here. We actually want the graph to start here. So what we're doing here is we're moving to that position and then, drawing dots so we know that it's actually working. Let's see if that actually works, okay? So when we do this, you see, it's drawing a dot, 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 dot. And we know it's calling this here is because if we, for example, if I change the dot here to a larger dot, let's say, we know it's, so just to know that it is actually doing it over here, you can see it's doing a larger dot. So now, sort of, we certainly have our function of getting the base positions. Let's move this back to our smaller dot. So we know we can get to a position X, okay? So, but what we need to do now is when we get to this position X, we need to be able to draw a bar, okay? But to draw the bar, we need a height, right? Let's draw the bar with a fixed height for now. And so how do we draw the bar? What do we need to do, draw the bar? Okay, so let's make the height a fixed height for now. Height equals 100. And we have the base X and we have the base Y. So we give it the base X and the base Y. So what is the draw bar function doing here? What it's basically doing is taking a color. We have to give it a color. Then it's drawing a line to this X position and the Y position, which is the base. And then it's moving it up, by the height, okay? That's what it's doing, is moving the bar, up to by the height. Okay, let's see if this actually is working. Base, and I need to move, we forgot to give it a color. And we can get the color, as we know, from the first program. You get color equals get color based on the index. So let's see what we get. Let's see what this will do then. So here we are drawing a bar which is of a fixed height always, but it's doing the things we need. But you know that it is doing it, sort of what it's traversing, as you can see, is it moves to this position, then draws a line, and then it kind of moves to this and come back. Now, if you want to see what the move to and line to functions are doing, it's basically saying move to an XY position and go to XY. Now, the turtle actually knows how to do an go to XY. So why did we write a move to function XY? The reason is we want to move to a point, but control whether it's going to draw a line or not when it moves to that point. Just to see, what would happen if I don't do this, what would happen, see what happens. Here's what's going to happen. So you can see the path it's tracing, but this is not what we want, right? So we wanted to move to these points, but we only wanted to draw a line when we say so, to moving to a point. So this is why when we move to a point, we move it up, but when we say we want a line to a point, we just say, okay, put the pen down and then go to the point. That's why we wrote this move to function and line to functions. So when we do this, this is what it's doing. So it's drawing the lines, so we seem to have that. So now what remains is we need to do a couple of things more, right? We need to write a label of what the chart title is here, and then for each of these bars, we need to write the label which indicates the data that we need, that we have. So let's check our write function, write label function. What do we do when we write a label? In the label, we just say, okay, we get what text we want to write. We move to the position X and Y where we want to write it. And then, we just specify the size of the label we want to write it. So for example, let's test our function out. Can we do a label, so that we want to do the label over here, which is 0. We keep the X position at 0, but we want to move down 150 positions, and then we want to write the label for 120. So we want to write test scores over here. Let's see if it will do that. So it will do this, and it draws the graph as we said. Let's speed this thing up a little bit so we don't have to wait each time that we make a change to see what it's doing. So now we know that it's drawing a label at each point that we wanted. So the question is, we need to be able to write a label here while we draw the graph, right? So let's do the labels here. And so what we say is, let's say what we need is we need to write the score. And what is the position we need to do? The X position is the same position as the base that we want. So it is the base X. Okay, now the Y position is the base X position. It's the base X position plus the height, plus a little bit more we want, right? So let's make it, move it, nudge it up a little bit, and the size, let's say, is a little bit less than this size. We want it smaller, so let's make it 12, and let's see what we get now, okay? So it's going to do that, okay? So that's what it did. And if we want the name of the students, is actually the same thing, and instead of the thing name here, we don't want it at the same point. We want it a little bit higher, so we kind of make it 40. So let's see what we get now. So we have name, score, name, score, name, score. So this is great. Now we have our visual done fine. What we need to do, of course, is make this visual change with the data we have. So we need to get the data, right? So let's get the data. Well, we already have the index and item in there, but the item is a string, okay? So what it is since when you enumerate the data, we're essentially just going to get a string. And we can't do numbers with strings, although we could just get the name in strings, okay? So what we do is, remember from our episode 2, how to manipulate strings. When you have a string, you can actually split it into words. So we're going to split the string into words into 2 parts, okay? And you can split it based on based on the delimiter. Okay, this is, or the comma is called a delimiter, or whatever is the character you need to split the string on. So we could say, sort of words equals, the item is our string, and then we split it based on a comma. And now since the item split, if you recall, returns us an array, so our score, or actually the name of the student, is actually the first word in our array. So we say it actually equals words 0. So let's see if we can get, instead of this name in a fixed literal that we got, let's see if we actually now, we put it in a variable, we have the variable name, let's see if it will actually write the name. Sure enough, see now? We have the fixed height, we have the names going, so we have all the name label, but we still need to get a score, okay? Now to get the score, we know what is the score. The score actually is the word 2, with the second item in the words array. But when you split a string, this words is actually is still a string, but we need a number, okay, an integer. If we try to do this, Python will complain because it says, you know what, this height, it actually needs to be a number. So if we just gave the height equals the score here, we're going to get an error. And sure enough, it says unsupported for add for integer, okay? Because it's trying to do something, you know, with a string when it actually expects a number. And this is a problem, you know, oftentimes, and you have many times in programs, you have a string and you need to convert it to a number. There are many different languages have different functions to convert a string into a number. Python has an easy one. You just say integer score, and then, you know, sort of what we get is, you will see it's actually now, you can see it is now actually scaling it, okay? And if I make the item, if I write the height, let's say write the score over here, we should get our data. Now what you see is that, you know, we did do it, it's kind of related to this, but although it's exactly, this is 65, this is 70, sometimes what you want is, you know, you want to scale the number. So it's a function of this, but it's not exactly the same value. And we could do this, you know, by saying, okay, you know, draw the bar, which is, the height is actually integer score times 2, let's say, right? So let's see if that will fix it. And sure enough, now we get a bigger bar, and our chart is complete. So this is how we have converted the data into a visual that now, you know, people do. Now we could do different kinds of individuals. We could, you know, decorate it in different ways. We could draw the bar of a different thickness, you know. So for example, if instead of the bar, you know, sort of I wanted the bar to be a different thickness, I could say T dot width, let's say, let's draw a very thick bar, okay? I could do this. So we could get a chart that looks like that. So you can experiment with this, and we will post the code for this in the notes, and as well as some things, you know, you need to explore about all the other tools you can use and the other ways you can visualize data. Remember, data visualization is converting numbers into into a plot of lines and dots, and the way you place those is what gives meaning to the data. I hope you got good insight into what data visualization is all about and how we go about mapping and transforming data to give us meaningful views of what the data is. I hope to see you at the next lesson, and I hope you actually go to the web and do a little bit of exploration on your own and see all the different ways data is visualized. It actually is a very fascinating field.